Okay, it is now
Ready?
1:30. We're ready to begin. If you would, Chair Keys.
Call a meeting to order. The Cultural Resources Review Board regular meeting February 10th, 2025. We'll take roll call. Want me to do that? Or you guys do that? Discretion.
Should be for the board.
We will start. We'll start on the archaeologist since I picked on them and moved them to the other side. Janet Jordan. Here. Christine New. Here. Robert Olson.
Here.
Nick. Yeah, I'm Chris.
Here.
Blair Knighting. Here. Susan Shelton. Here. And Leslie Key. Hi. We're all here. Okay. I will read the civility statement. This is a public notice. The Cultural Resources Review Board serves as an advisory board which makes recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. This is a properly noticed public meeting held in accordance with the requirements of Florida law. Members of the public will be given reasonable opportunity to be heard on propositions before the board as those items are addressed on the agenda. For public comments on matters not being considered by the board today, a general public comment period will be provided to address the board on matters within its jurisdiction. Each person addressing the board shall limit comments to 3 minutes. Persons shall not address the board or any member thereof unless specifically recognized by the chairperson to do so. Once recognized, members of the public shall address their comments to the board as a whole. Public comment is intended for the board to hear from the public and shall not be considered an opportunity to demand immediate responses from the board or its members. Board members shall not engage in dialogue with persons making public comment unless the question or comment is directed through the chair or made with permission of the chair. For those matters requiring a public hearing, speakers may offer sworn testimony. If they do not, the board may consider the fact that testimony is unsworn in determining the weight or truthfulness of the testimony. Any physical or documentary evidence presented during the public hearing, such as drawings, photographs, or written statements, will be retained by the staff as part of the record. Board members are reminded that at the beginning of each item requiring a public hearing, they should state whether they had any communication with any person regarding the substance of the item outside the formal hearing of the board. If such a communication occurred, the board member should then identify the persons involved and the material content of the communication. I'm going to use chairman's privilege and defer the minutes approval until our next meeting so that we can have some corrections made. If anyone has those besides me, I'd suggest you email them to Megan, please. We need to address a motion to approve the current agenda. And I think probably we would need an amendment to that just to recognize some, at least I have a process question that I would like to have included in some of our discussion when it comes to the kinds of documentation required to be submitted to this board for a recommendation regarding any kind of a demolition.
Madam Chair, are you proposing a specific addition to the agenda today?
That we discuss the type of document, yes, that we
Okay,
discuss the
what
type
would
of
that-
documentation.
What was that read specifically on, just so I can write it down and see it as we're acting on the agenda?
That the applicant, in addition to anyone else that's part of that's been retained as part of a team to propose a demolition, make sure that they are present, that there be substantive factual justification, and that if it is easily convenient to do so, this body consider being given a tour by the applicant to tour that property. And any other materially important information that would help to make the decision.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I just want to, I'm not questioning your addition, I'm just wondering, are you suggesting that it be a separate item as a map that we vote
Have
on?
that we, yes, that
Okay,
we,
so it would be demolition
that-
or policy relative to demolition?
or procedures, yes, the
Okay.
process related to a demolition of a property within the county that comes before this body.
Thank you.
How's that? So I would accept a motion to approve the agenda with that amendment, if everyone is comfortable.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion by Ms. Sheldorf, seconded by Mr. Olson to approve the amended agenda. All in favor, or do I need to do a roll call by law? Can we do all in favor?
Right.
Say aye.
Aye. Linda.
Okay.
And then if there's any opposed,
All opposed? Okay. All right. Public comment. We're gonna have 3 minutes. Mr. Slavin.
Thank you, Dr. Keith. Ed Slavin, box 3084, edslavin.com, sendontherscreen.com. I want to thank this board for all your work. I want to thank Dr. Keith for bringing some new energy to these meetings. We need to hold these meetings at the main county auditorium, and it needs to be televised. And I've been saying that for years. I think maybe we could do it now. If y'all would pass a resolution, please ask the county commission to give us that space and have those meetings over there. Blank meetings are over at the auditorium, and I don't see why this one isn't. And people have a right to know. When we talked about Canwright House and what was almost done to it, and what was done to Trey Alexander Asner, simply for First Amendment protected activity and seeking to protect African American history, it's a sin, a crime, and a tort. And I'm sure you've been reading about it. I'm sure you'll be hearing about it. But I look forward to Trey Alexander Asner being reinstated with full benefits of back pay. What was done to him was disgusting. And what was done to several successive cultural resources coordinators, 3 or 4 of them, was just wrong. And now you look at the old jail. I'm so glad that that item was not on the agenda today. But when I saw it and I read about it, and then I saw what David Nolan had to say, what Trey Alexander Asner had to say, that should never have been. The county applied for a demolition permit without taking it to y'all first. Y'all need to stand up for your rights and prerogatives as board members, and if necessary, hire a private counsel to sue St. Johns County. And maybe just to file an administrative complaint under Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which, by the way, became possible. We have a Title VI of the 1964 Civil Rights Act because of what happened here in St. Augustine with all the courageous people. 1,000 people were arrested here for bogus crimes. And of course, William Kunstler, a distinguished attorney, and a team of lawyers removed those cases to federal court in Jacksonville. And every single one of those 1,000 criminal cases was dismissed by Judge Brian Simpson, for whom the federal court building in Jacksonville is named. But that's our history here. And here we are between hope and history. And it kind of reminds me of what JFK said during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Apparently there was a plane not supposed to be somewhere and almost started World War III. And JFK said, and I quote, he says, what? He's the last SOB to find out. Pilot was not even told what was going on in the Cuban Missile Crisis. And JFK says, there's always some poor SOB that doesn't get the word. Well, that would include our county attorney's office and our county administrator's office. And there we hired a county attorney who didn't even apply for the job. We hired a county administrator who didn't even apply for the job. And this county.
Thank you, Mr. Slavin. Thank you.
You don't have to interrupt to develop a sentence, do you? So, class. Thank you.
David Nolan.
I pulled from the agenda, which gave me a chance to speak to you in advance about what I think is going to be the most important historic preservation question you ever have come before you. Because I cannot think of another building which has housed Dr. Martin Luther King, Ambassador Andrew Young, Dr. C.T. Vivian, Mrs. Peabody, the 72-year-old mother of the governor of Massachusetts and cousin of Eleanor Roosevelt, Dr. Haling, the leader of the civil rights movement here, and hundreds of other people. You cannot create this kind of history again. It's God's gift to us, and it was a gift to America that it led to the passage of the Civil Rights Act, which was one of the 2 outstanding legislative accomplishments of that movement. And I am conscious of the debates that took place in the state last year about where should the state's Black History Museum be located. And I was naturally a partisan of St. Augustine for many, many reasons. But I know that the people who opposed it said, look, you're proposing someplace out in the boondocks there. Nobody's going to go there. Well, I think the first thing that museum is going to want to do is have a tour bringing people through the rest of St. Augustine, by the Martin Luther King Beach House, by the Zora Neale Hurston House, by that old jail building, by Fort Mose, by the Florida School for the Deaf and the Blind, where the most distinguished alumnus was Ray Charles, and down by Tolomato Cemetery, where America's first black general, Jorge Biasu, was buried in 1801, and down along the route of the civil rights marches and past Dr. Haling's dental office and the Lincolnville Museum and so on. This is the future, but we have to keep these places standing. We can't just let them go one by one. And so it's on your table. You know, I wish I could give you something wonderful, but stand up and fight for this, because this is really important. And my wife wanted me to give you, I guess because she knows you don't have enough pieces of paper in front of you, enough things to read, but a story of what's being done in Alabama with a jail where Martin Luther King was. Which is still owned by the Sheriff's Department, and how they're preserving it rather than destroying it. So God bless you if you can make this contribution here.
That's all the speaker cards I had. You guys have someone on your side. All right. Okay, we are ready to move to the regular agenda. And the first item on the agenda is an update on the Barrancado's Snappers review process.
So this structure is a, that's all right, yep, this structure is a county landmark. We have gone through the appropriate development review, and there are currently no open comments, which dictates to the property owner and companies that they have had the go-ahead. That is all we can see on our end. We'd love feedback from the CRRB to understand how to treat county landmarks in the future. If there's any comments you'd like to give, we are open for feedback.
Probably not wearing my chair hat, but wearing my consultant for the project hat 2 years ago. You all have the ad valorem tax exemption parts 1 and 2. So, but presuming that what they are submitting follows the scope of work that was outlined in that, then that should be, you know, they run in tandem theoretically. There is a time frame. They are in the 12-month time period. It's a calendar year this year. They have to have a certificate of occupancy by December 31st this year to keep the ad valorem under state law.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
could we ask the county, I'm not sure if I'm up on the details of this, I just heard what was just reported by the county thing, and I'm not sure I completely understood the status of the structure.
If I may, Mr. Olson, Ryan with County Environmental. I'd like to say that we also have a commercial plan set in-house right now that the county has reviewed, and there are still open comments on that. The cultural resource staff has reviewed that commercial plan set. Basically is identical to what the renderings were in the parts 1 and 2, as well as the certificate of appropriateness and the landmark that this board had seen and passed. And so we wanted to make sure that that all lined up, and it did. So currently there's a commercial plan set in-house right now, and there are still open comments, but we have none.
Okay, so everything appears to be going forward per the review that this board did, what, almost a year ago now, I guess. Okay, thank you.
I guess the only other thing I would say is I would encourage any of you that haven't been out there lately to drive by and see it. It had damage before and during the hurricanes, so it,
So even what, through the chair, if I'm understanding you. So even while they're going through their review process, there still is an obligation as a landmark to maintain it, preserve it, keep it weather tight and everything like that. So if those are issues that are not occurring, that would be a code enforcement matter that we would refer over with regard to that. With regard to the CO, our tax exemption, so I'm kind of out of sequence on it, but there should not be an ad valorem tax until the proposed improvements are substantially complete. And so has the ad valorem tax been done yet?
What happens is parts 1 and 2 go in saying this is what we're going to do,
Correct.
and then the notification is put on the tax bill at the property appraiser's office, because when we've had this happen, especially in South Florida, the minute you start seeing work go on, they raise the taxes on that property. In other words, there have been lawsuits in South Florida to stop them to do it. It's supposed to be held at the current level while the work is going on.
So our ordinance
that's
doesn't
the
work
reason
that way.
it's-
So that might be
right,
how they do it in
correct.
South Florida. So and
Yeah.
here, in order
We
to do
just
the ad valorem tax,
Sit it.
we can't do that until the improvement's been substantially complete.
Yeah, and that's not done anywhere.
So
But we
they
don't-
have a current ad valorem tax on this property.
No, there's
Okay.
an application, parts 1 and 2. When
Got
they
it.
finish, part 3 will be done and
Correct.
signed off on. But it does keep it at the pre-rehabilitation millage and construction, valuation for
Correct.
the building, so that
Correct.
they're not paralyzed by
I just wanted to clarify that there
Yeah.
wasn't an existing ad valorem tax exemption on this property.
No.
Okay, thank you.
I would encourage this to go to code enforcement regarding the current condition of the building, because it is certainly not secured. It is standing open.
Happy to address that
So
through the chair and to the public. So anybody can put in a code enforcement matter through our PRIDE system.
Oh.
We don't take anonymous complaints, but we do take complaints from the public with your name and address, and you are happy to put in any PRIDE complaint. We oftentimes, our code enforcement, they work through that system. And so if you do have any knowledge or anything that you would like for them to see, please feel free to use our PRIDE system at the county.
Madam Chair, is there an address?
I'm sure there is, and I have no idea what it is, but if you drive down the main road, Volano Beach, as if you were heading toward beaches, you can't miss it. It's on the left-hand side.
Through the chair,
Turquoise building.
165 Volano Road.
It was in my brain 2 years ago. It's not anymore. But maybe that's something from now on when we do the agenda, put the addresses on. Just to keep us honest. Okay. Any other questions on that topic? Okay. And you don't need any kind of an approval. That was just a report item, correct? Okay. Master plan and visuals from Hastings Main Street. I'm guessing this is Sala and Jenny.
Are we guys, do you want us to come up there or stand here? What is the?
Yep, it's up to you.
Are you recording this meeting?
Yes.
Okay. So probably better, guys.
All right, did you pull up the right thing?
Yeah, that was the only
That's the
file
other thing.
on
Okay,
flash drive.
all right.
Ms. Sally, sorry to interrupt. If you may introduce yourselves for the record.
Okay, Sally O'Hara, Executive Director for Hastings Main Street. Jenna Dennis is the chair of the Hastings Main Street Group. Okay. All righty. Okay, next.
I want to just put it on
So what?
just click on it. Should be the next one.
All right, go for it.
Forward.
All right, yes. So this is Hastings Main Street, and I presented this information earlier last year on our strategic objectives and what we were trying to do with the infrastructure build out for Hastings Main Street. And what we wanted to do today is to update you on some activities that we've got going on currently. Okay.
There's a video.
Welcome to Hastings Main Street, Inc. We're excited to join the countless small towns across Florida and the nation in the effort to revitalize and maintain historic Main Street communities to promote economic growth within the context of historic preservation. There are a lot of things in the works. Check us out. HastingsFL.org.
So in the last year, 2024, we have succeeded in getting about 10 new businesses on Main Street. So we are very proud to convey that we are a destination to happen. And we are kind of on the borderline of Putnam County and St. Johns County. So we are regionally drawing from different areas. And with that in mind, we have development objectives in mind to benefit both Putnam County as well as St. Johns County. Go ahead. I copied the wrong thing. Go ahead. Go ahead. Okay. And within the district, we've got a new historic library going to be constructed in this particular location, and it will be completed by December of 2025, hopefully no later than 2026, the first quarter. So we have the library coming in, and it's going to be a fantastic addition to the community.
One of our goals of being a Main Street, a Florida Main Street, we are officially designated now. Our goal is to not only, utilize our current historic assets. We have a lot of historic structures on Main Street, and previously, about 2.5 years ago, as Sally mentioned, 90% of them were vacant, and now we are almost 90% occupied. We're looking to preserve all of those, get them up and operating in business, and hopefully by the end of this year, we will be at 100% occupancy or at 95% occupancy. So our goal is to utilize this small community and revitalize it using our current assets, but also as development spreads to that area of St. Johns County, we want to make sure we're protecting the integrity of the community as well. It's been a small, underserved community for so long, and a lot of the people there have, since in 2018 when Hastings dissolved, a lot of people went through a very difficult period of transition as St. Johns County took over. So our goal today also, as you kind of review all of this, is to show you our plans. We've been meeting with all the different counties and all the different departments within the county to show you our plan, our vision, and to get feedback as well. Because we feel as a Main Street, we understand the county is spending a tremendous amount of money in Hastings over the next 24 to 48 months. But as a Main Street, we're also able to apply for grants on behalf of the county. Many of you have heard we're working on the 2 depot projects to move the 2 train depots that were given to us by the airport authority, and we're moving them to Hastings to become a part of our community. One of them will be a community center, and then the other one will be along the bike trail as we're working on our Trail Town designation. But our goal ultimately is to identify funding through grant resources to help the county and support the county in improving our community. We spent so many years as a community underserved, and now is our opportunity to really thrive. So as you view this, I wanted you to understand what our ultimate goal is today.
Right, and this is the old depot, and again, we plan to move the depots from the airport authority to 2 parcels. One is the old jail property, And then the other is along the bike trail. So we have a great objective there. Okay. Go ahead. And this is our district, and up at the top, this is the Hastings Road right here, from Federal Point. That's the top of the district, and then down at the bottom of the district is George Miller Road. And all these parcels in between are the focus of our concentration. Right now, we are focusing on this area from St. John's West Avenue down to State Road 207 to build out these assets. And we've again added 10 new businesses to this mix. But among those, right here is the Cochran property, where we want to put the old jail asset and build out the paver project. What we have designed is to be able to do paver replacement from here to here on the commercial district to expand the sidewalk. Unfortunately, FPL is kind of a problem issue, so we diverted to building out our old jail property to complete the pocket park, which would be right here in our game plan.
And we're going to go into more detail on that on the next agenda item. This one is kind of talking about the broad picture.
Okay, so overall, the county has been very, very generous in their contributions to our community in the last year, year and a half. Thank you very much. And this is our next great adventure. Our library is coming soon, and go out there and take a look. The dirt is flying. So we are very, very grateful. This is the old library, and it is also being under renovation and restoration. So we are very, very grateful that we have preserved these community properties. So as I say, from St. John's all the way down to State Road 207, we've got all of these businesses opening up, and we have got a great impetus going on. And within this area, we've got the exciting ability at the north end of the St. John's area to have Free Kids Academy opening up very soon, and it's an independent private school. At the furthest end of the property, we have First Coast Technical Center. So we'll have a primary school, we have a high-end technical school, and in between, we've got a daycare. So
And the library.
and the library. For years and years and years, one of the things that depleted the energy in Hastings was an absence of schools. So we now have that replacement.
Oh, mention what building the preschool, elementary is going
The Potato Growers Building.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, the potatoes.
Yeah.
really important.
Right, and that is historic property, and it is available to be registered on the National Register. They haven't moved that forward, but it is a culturally significant property, as you guys have designated. Go ahead. And this is the idea of the paver project. We want to close up the grassy area along Main Street with pavers. And we've got a Rotary grant, and we will do the paver project, which includes historic recognition. But we are going to divert this right now immediately before March 30th to the old Pocket Park area. Okay. And this is the look of the lights. And you want to talk about the lights?
Yeah, so we have been blessed. One of our board members is Brett Quizzen, who is from Castle Bay Designs, and he's graciously been working diligently on helping us create our vision moving into the next several years. And part of that, of course, is looking at street lights, pavers, improvements, both capital improvements, aesthetic improvement, private investment improvement. And he has successfully worked on multiple projects with the city of St. Augustine. He's done a lot of pocket parks in Lincolnville, and he's working at the one at the corner of King and US 1. He's also worked with 10 or 11 different main streets across Florida. So his insight's been very helpful in guiding us on what is practical, especially on a limited budget. There's a lot we can do with the current assets of Hastings, but continue to evolve and create an economically diverse community. But basically, one of the things, as Sally mentioned, that we had identified doing was replacing the grass with the pavers. And during that process, we realized that eventually when we wanted to redo the FPL streetlights, that we would have to pull the pavers back up. So we put a pause on that for a moment to proceed with upgrading the FPL lights. St. Johns County inherited almost 200 streetlights in the Hastings community, and typically St. Johns County doesn't own streetlights. So it became kind of a learning process for everyone as we figured out, well, how does this work? So we thankfully received direction from the VOCC for the county to explore options on what could be done. And that's the phase we're in right now with the FPL. Our goal is to replace the existing 9 streetlights along Main Street. They have aged out, they're at end of life according to FPL, and FPL is actually going to force replacement of them over the next 12 months, they informed us. So our goal is to ideally figure out the funding logistics so that the county doesn't have to come out of pocket with that, but through grant money, we want to have those lights replaced with aesthetic lights. It's called the Granville design. And the reason we chose this specific design is, as you can see in this photo, and we have several photos, the originals are a lot easier to see, but this is an identical street light as to what was in Hastings over 100 years ago. So it was a beautiful ode to the community to be able to try to bring that back. The cost to put them throughout the Hastings community is not feasible, so our goal is to replace those 9 with the historic style, and eventually, as needed, identify other areas along the street that are dark. Currently, because we're on the old vintage halogen lights that are over 40 years old, the street is very, very dark. We're attempting to replace those 9 existing with the new ones and see how much that brightens up the community. It may be sufficient according to FPL, and then if it's not, we'll identify areas of need. For instance, we have a school bus stop where the kids are picked up, and as you know, certain parts of the year it's very dark. But our goal is to really keep the historic Main Street feel as we look at all of these different capital improvements for the community. But that's we've learned to pivot quickly as a community org. The Rotary grant we received has to be completed by March 31st. So that put some pressure on us, and we were not able to get a resolution with FPL. So that's why we kind of pivoted this project and focused on the Cochran Pocket Park. And then this one is still a project we are moving forward on and working on, figuring out resolutions that work, of course, for St. Johns County, but also would be exciting for the community to get.
Right. Okay, another activity that we're trying to achieve is wayfinding signage. So entering Hastings from the west and entering Hastings from the east, we want to have wayfinding signage to replace the old Florida Potato Capital signage. So that is on the agenda, and I think it's gonna happen within 6 months to a year.
Yeah, we've applied for a T-Mobile grant, and our goal is to use the funding from that grant to help offset the cost of this. So we've been working with DOT to identify the requirements to do that. And we're also getting inspiration from a lot of the historical signs that have been in Hastings for many years. And again, Brett has been kind enough to kind of guide us on that and what other main streets are doing, and a lot of the companies that other main streets are using to get the most cost advantage.
So is your intent to replace it with a historical marker design?
Uh,
Sign,
These are not historical. This is historical.
right?
This is just a road sign, and yes, we plan to replace these with the new signage.
Yeah, this particular marker is at the library, or what was the old Hastings High School building. We also just, the community just got our second historical marker. You may have seen the groundbreaking for the Wetumpka Fruit Company for Greg Leonard. He was able to accomplish that, and he's going to be writing for a few other historical markers, but that's a little bit different from what we're looking for. We absolutely love the historical markers. They are vitally important to our community, but at the moment, for the economic redevelopment of getting these businesses, traffic to become sustainable, it's important that we have wayfinding signs. So that's our focus. We're looking at a monument sign out in the DOT right-of-way, and then some wayfinder signs directing people to the historic Main Street district and letting them know there's a coffee shop, there's a library, there's, all of these different things that as people traverse 207 from, one end to the other, they'll see the assets that are available for their pleasure and enjoyment. So.
Right. And we do have the mural project. This is not the right slide, but we do have a brand new mural, R.L. Lewis.
Yeah, so one of the grants we received was a public art project, and I think many of you have seen our beautiful mural. We're very excited and proud. It was a collaboration from the original highwayman, R.L. Lewis, who is one of the black highwaymen that traveled along the highways back in the mid-1900s. He is a dear friend, and he was gracious enough. He's actually been to several of our festivals, but he was gracious enough to paint an original painting, which is on display for Hastings Main Street, and we intend to put it either in the library or the community center. And then muralist Brooke Page took that mural, which is of farmers in Hastings, and blew it up on the wall on the side of the coffee shop. And we hope to do more collaborations. The reason that, particularly why R.L. Lewis is significant, is because if you're familiar with the highwayman artist, Beanie Bacchus is considered kind of the forefather of the highwaymen. He was good friends with many of the highwaymen, and gave them a lot of wonderful feedback on their work, and they worked together and collaborated and developed their style. And the Bacchus murals are on the second floor of the historic Stanton Ford building, and we're excited to have those in our community. But that tie-in, the fact that R.L. Lewis was able to view these murals in person, and it was very exciting and kind of very goosebumpy, but it was a really neat experience. So we've actually had Curtis Arnett, who is another highwayman, come and visit the community and tell stories about when they remember Hastings back in the day. So it's just a fun little tie-in. Additionally, my husband accidentally discovered this historic ghost mural on the side of the old John Deere tractor depot. And as you can see, it's a very long, slow, tedious process with a razor knife, but he's slowly uncovering it. And our goal and our hope is to eventually uncover the entire mural, frame it out, and then preserve it. We had been in the process of painting it, and he thought he saw some lettering under it, and then he's like, we can't paint this, we gotta see what's under here. And it's taken about a year to get to this point, but a lot of it is trying to get the weather to cooperate and help peel off the paint. So just another fun piece that we're working to preserve and keep as part of our community.
Well, the A.E. Bacchus, was he behind some of the DeLand murals?
I don't know.
I think
not that I'm
the
aware.
land murals are later.
Okay, so is there any intent to have additional murals
Yes.
designating the
Yes.
potato
We
production process and
So we
Oh,
have Juniper Market, a local eatery here in St. Augustine, is opening. They purchased a building on Main Street. It's down by the Potato Growers Building, and we are collaborating with them for the Fall Festival for them to put a mural on the side of their building. And all of the themes of the public art are going to be, agricultural. And also we have a few in mind for historical. For instance, the old jail. That is a property that has a lot of very hard history attached to it, especially for the Black community. So we've been collaborating. We have several members on our board that are working with the Black community to hear what they see for that property. So we intend to have a public art display there, and we're all collaborating to define exactly what that will look like. But yeah, our goal as a small Main Street community is to have a lot of public art, and preserve as much of the historical art as well.
Okay. This is the old jail, 1909 to 1938 in Hastings, Florida. And it is a landmark designation, and we plan to create the pocket park with the pavers to honor the old jail activity here. Excuse me.
So this,
Rusticated concrete block.
yes, it's a beautiful concrete block. It has the original iron bars on the windows as well as the original iron door. It's had a lot of work done to the interior. Like, it has a drop ceiling, I think from the 70s or 80s. And, our goal is to pretty much leave it all original. We do intend to, take down the drop ceiling, but all of that is phase 2 of our project. We're not going to be doing anything to the building right now. Our goal eventually is we've put it out at several of our community meetings to see what the community would like to see done with this building, whether it's a small museum or, some type of gallery. But our goal ultimately with this property is it's been sitting behind, these aren't the best photos to see the whole property, but it's been sitting behind a chain link fence, which is falling down with barbed wire around it for the past 36 years. And it has been vacant, and at one point in time there were a lot of dishes from Comcast all over the property, and thankfully those are gone. But when St. Johns County inherited this property, it had been sorely neglected. So the excitement in the community seeing something being done with this property and turning it into a beautiful pocket park, and really putting it back to use for the community purposes is really exciting.
And there's some interesting history to that too, that was discussed here with this board when it was designated a couple of years ago.
Yeah,
So that's great.
I found the article from when it was designated, and
Okay.
we have some local residents that have been putting together oral history on stories they remember. So we're
And-
trying to culminate all of that so that we can put it together. And like I said, whether it opens as a museum or whatever ends up being done with the building, we want to make sure we preserve the history.
And we're also working on walking tours. We met this morning, and we've got an app that is Hastings specific, and we have historic walking tours to educate the public on these things, as well as heritage marker program that we're implementing.
Yeah, we received an $8,000 grant to create this historic walking tour, and we've partnered with Henry Hurd, who does the St. Augustine app, and they are helping us build out all of the historical assets into this app. So it'll be linked to our website, and you can literally walk around town, and as you walk, the pin will follow you and talk about all the properties, and not only historic, but it's also tying in then and now. so people can see what the building looked like, 100 years ago and what it is now, and tie into that business's website. So we're trying to bring everything full circle and make it really user-friendly and functional.
So this is the depot. These two depots were moving from the airport authority over to Hastings. This one will go on the trail, the Palaca St. Augustine Trail, and we are eyeballing it for incubator space for small business startups and a community amenity center. And this is the facility that will go on this property next to this one.
This particular one is slightly smaller. The reason we identified this as a community center is because we've been working with St. Johns County Library with Deborah, and they have, of course, been challenged with only so much square footage and so much more need than they have square footage for. So we have offered the use of this community center for a lot of their additional programming that they want to pursue, that they may have conflicts occasionally. Also for other nonprofits potentially to use for, Boy Scout meetings, Girl Scout meetings, things like that, that might be a wonderful fit for the community. But ultimately, this one, the reason we are looking to put it along the bike trail, one of the requirements of being a trail town is to have amenities such as bathrooms and water refill stations. So it's an excellent opportunity to preserve this beautiful historic structure, but also utilize it. And part of what we are wanting to do as an incubator space, that was actually something we had people come from the national Main Street, and they did an analysis and a report on what works and what they felt would be a good fit for our community. And they brought up the idea of maybe we should consider an incubator space. The reason we are looking at that as an option is because it creates a self-sustainable income stream, to where the income from doing that will offset all of the cost of maintaining these buildings, so that it's not a drain on the county or Hastings Main Street to have to, constantly support these properties. So we're looking at ways to serve the community, but also make it sustainable.
Was there any connection with rails to trails?
Yes,
Yes.
that's exactly what it is.
And that links to the Trail Town application. We've got it halfway done. I haven't submitted it, but we could administratively be granted a trails to, a Trail Town designation. But we have Juniper Market and a few other businesses that need to come on board before we do that.
Right, so we're anticipating by the end of this year, once Juniper Market's looking to open this summer ideally. Once they open, then we'll have enough businesses and facilities to support the Rails to Trails Trail Town designation.
Okay.
So these are, you can see, this is actually the old jail building here.
Right, there's Mercedes and
Yeah.
and then the old high school and so forth. Okay. Good.
Does the county have records on the old jail then? You guys have?
We have the landmark application documents. We do.
Right.
Send it to me, because it looks like North City Block and
Right.
Fine Quarter Joint.
Yeah, and as other buildings are, as we go through the process, we are identifying other structures that we might pursue designations for as well.
Right, and we were encouraged by the Florida Main Street organization to go for a national historic district for the whole district. We haven't pursued that yet. I mean, too young and new for that, but we have.
We've done a bit of research, and I think it adds a layer of complexity to our community that, some of the feedback we've received was not necessary. It's not something we're actively pursuing right now.
Yeah, but it's in the background, and we may very well go at one point or another. But significant properties, significant cultural resource, the barbershop, 415, built in 1925. And then we've got the library site. We've got the Holiness Church, which used to be the bank, where the Potato Growers Association had all of their money significantly invested. We've got the tricolor building, and that Jenna has applied for tax credit.
We
uh,
received tax
yeah.
credit, yep, we received our ad valorem.
Right.
All of these buildings are properties that, you know, as we work to preserve and restore, you know, we certainly will be back for more cultural resources, so.
Right. So we've got a wealth of properties that qualify for cultural significance, and we're moving forward. And then borderline on the edge of the district, we've got the United Methodist Church and the post office. So we've got in the footprint of Hastings town, we have a whole lot of historic reasons to preserve. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. We appreciate your time, and again, just kind of wanted to keep you up to speed on what we're doing and what we're planning. That way, as we come through over the next couple years, you kind of have a overall big picture of our goals.
I just want to make a suggestion that the potato grower sign, even though you don't think it's historic, should at least go to an archives. Because that's still,
So what?
the potato grower sign, when you take it down, send it to an archives.
Which potato grower sign?
The green one that you think is not historic.
No,
Oh.
the green one, the one that says Hastings, that's the DOT sign.
Yeah, we're gonna,
capital
Oh,
sign.
oh no, the potato capital sign, we're not
Green
taking
one.
that
No,
one
no.
down. That's staying. I think she was talking about the green one that said Hastings FL. That's the DOT sign. Yeah. Oh yeah, we'll keep it. We, you know
Yeah.
me, we don't throw
it,
anything
it's
away.
going
All
on
those
our,
interstate signs are
Yeah.
historic these days too.
Yes, we don't intend to dispose of them. So
And thank you, Vanna, for your assistance with the presentation.
okay.
Thank you both very much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I
Thank
wanna
you.
say, Madam Chair, I just want to say, great job. I personally, because I bicycle a lot, have witnessed the transformation so far, and it's really, really inspiring to see. They had a festival 2 weeks ago, another street festival, and they're starting to feature all the ways to eat cabbage, make preserve anyway. Cabbage stump grilled and fried cabbage are wonderful. So I'll just say that. But I also want to commend the county, because the county couldn't have stepped up with the library and community center in that location at the right time. It's the right time.
yes, we've been very grateful for the county collaboration on all of our projects because we couldn't do what we're doing if they weren't doing what they were doing. So
Yeah, yeah.
The timing adds so much more energy. I mean, the whole place has construction renovation activity underway. So
yes.
it's great.
Yeah.
And I
yeah.
want to invite you all, April 25th and 26th, we have the cabbage, potato, and
26
bacon.
and 7.
I'm sorry, 26th and 27th, Saturday and Sunday, we have the Cabbage, Potato, and Bacon Festival. We have, we're kicking off that Friday night with a James Beard Foundation dinner in Volano, actually. Michael from Michael's Tasting Room has graciously offered to host a huge fundraiser. If you're not familiar with the James Beard Foundation, I have to Google it. It's a big deal. We have chefs flying in from all over the world. I know, I'm admitting. So it's very exciting, and then we have 2 days full of local celebrity chefs and people flying in that are going to be coming to visit and talking about exactly that, recipes on how to cook cabbage, potato, and bacon. So please join us. We would love to see you all.
Through the chair, Jackie Williams, Planning and Zoning. Can you email me that PowerPoint?
Yeah,
That would be
sure could.
Yeah, and we'll also send you, so Brett has drawn up a
Master
streetscape master plan. We didn't bring that today because it's not quite ready for public consumption, but it's just a beautiful vision on, you know, long term where we'd like to go with it. And, you know, as the county works on, you know, looking at the Hastings overlay, just kind of a vision to keep it that historic and, you know, beautiful place that it is.
Yep. We're
And then I
trying to,
think we're agenda item 3, so I guess, would you like us to?
talk about, okay, Old Jail.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to go through this quickly since you kind of already got the big picture. So I know everyone's ready to move on to the next thing, so we'll be quick. This is the Old Jail Pocket Park. These are some inspiration photos. These are not actual photos of what the park will look like, but just some inspiration of what our long-term goals are. The first phase of the pocket park is what we are currently working on, which is to add pavers to the park to create a walkway path. And the walkway path is going to go to the old jail building, and then it will have a turn that will go off and eventually hopefully go to where the depot will be placed. It's just a lovely addition to the community, and it will include, if you will click through, it will include, here you are. So this is the pavered part that's going in as phase 1. There's going to be entry columns on either side, and it will have a plaque honoring Hastings Rotary and the Rotary Foundation that has helped pay for this project. And one of the requirements of the grant, as we mentioned, is that it's completed by the end of March. So we've been pushing, and we're incredibly grateful to the county for helping us push this along because, like I said, it was a last minute pivot. But it was important to us not to lose that money. So it's exciting, like I said, to be able to put in the first layer of what this property eventually will hopefully be. You can.
Through the chair, I do have a question to you.
Absolutely.
Is the Hastings jail going to be open, or is it just going to be by appointment? It's going to be locked up?
It will only be by appointment,
Okay.
yeah. So that's, the old jail building's gonna be phase 2. Once we have a clear vision from the community on what we're gonna do with it, you know, we'll come back before and, you know, actually submit plans for that. But ultimately, our goal, as we mentioned, is to preserve and restore the structure in the sense of, you know, turning it back into something that can be used for community use, whether that's as a museum to honor the history or as, you know, it's not a very large structure. So
Very small.
yeah, it's very tiny, but this property itself, you know, our long-term goals are to make it a usable property.
And we have the Council on Aging going to maintain the gardens.
Yes, so we are doing some raised bed gardens for the Council on Aging. We actually have, we're working with St. Johns County Board of Realtors, who is taking before their board a $10,000 grant to have fencing put up along the perimeter.
Yeah.
But instead of chain link fence, it's going to be a beautiful decorative fence that will define the space as a park.
Regarding the pavers, is there enough time before the end of March to sell pavers? That would
So-
be a good fundraiser.
We are
Well-
we do sell pavers. We have sold, I think, 20 or 30. We haven't heavily pushed it because we want people to know where their pavers are going to be placed. So eventually those pavers will get placed closer to the old, to where the old depot building is going to go. But yes, we do intend to do that. There wasn't time to sell enough and to push fast enough to do this initial circle. But eventually we would love to give people the opportunity to buy the legacy pavers.
And we will have a work day to remove this old fencing. Part of the Rotary Grant requires volunteerism. And we engage community members to help us wherever they can.
So we'll send the details out if you want to bring your shovel.
Yeah. And this is the idea of the plaque that will represent Rotary Hastings entrance gateway to the park. So
Those are just the renderings.
Okay.
So that's what we're here for today, just to kind of keep you up to date on
Keep you
what our
updated.
goals are.
Thank you.
Any
Through
other?
through the chair, if I can give a little background, since David Coffins here from our real estate section, we've been working on the lease. So the county's leasing this property to Hastings Main Street. This first phase, just so you're aware, does not involve the old jail. They have no access, they're not doing anything with it. That'll be at a later time. We've written into the lease that any of these programmings, activities, placing the structure first have to come back to the county for approval. So right now it really is the placing of the pavers for their pocket park, which is a minor activity, doesn't require authorization by this board because it doesn't involve the landmark structure itself. So I just wanted to clarify that for you.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Yeah, and like I said, we are open to feedback. If you have a vision of what you could recommend the old jail building be, we're completely open to that.
Anyone else have questions or comments from the board?
Wonderful. Thank you all for
Thank
your
you.
time.
Thank you. I think we might have to have one other 10-second plug though for Hastings, because it was the most famous property last night during the football game. Yeah, I mean, come on, guys.
They prepared this.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe it was going to be your lead. Brought the little girl with you. Very cool. Okay, unless the staff has something else, we go on to board member reports. Is that right? Did you have?
You're gonna do board reports now or staff reports, up to you. You did have one more agenda item, that's correct.
Do it out of the agenda item. Did you want to do it
That
after all
is-
the
Oh,
reports?
I was gonna say, that's what your call on that. You want it after reports?
Okay.
Okay, all right. All right, let's say, I chose my topic before, let's say a couple months ago. So federal preservation policy probably is not something we'll deal too much with yet, since that's kind of in the middle of chaos in Washington DC these days. But Advocacy Day will be in early April, when the Florida Trust for Historic Preservation will coordinate that nationwide effort that goes to advocate for the federal preservation funds that come back to the states. They are based on the amount of activity that each state generates. So Florida always gets more than $1 million a year and is one of the highest recipients as far as the federal dollars to come back. So obviously we have a large population too, but just information on that. I don't know if there's particularly good time on any of this, but after consulting with the staff, I want to go ahead and, before the agenda got finalized, but when it was out there in draft form, so I'm gonna do my ex parte communication that I received from a variety of organizations, including the,
So your ex parte disclosures are only prior to the
yes.
quasi judicial matters.
You
So
don't-
since
I
it's
don't
not
need
on the
to.
agenda, you don't need to disclose.
All right, I'll hang on to them should it come back and be a real matter. Okay. Okay, well, the staff suggested that go ahead and do it, so, all right, just check. Would like to encourage that we do some public outreach as a board over this year. In an ideal world, and that doesn't necessarily mean we as board members, but we each individually could go, as long as no one else is going. But staff to try to get to each of the 5 county commission districts and hold a meeting in the library or something and let everybody know that this board exists and what we do. I think we would end up generating some more interest projects, because we have a lot of new residents, people who have moved from city to county, etc., and probably have no idea that the board exists or what we do, and that we have landmarks throughout the county. So part of that ties in an ideal world, America 250 is the national celebration that started a couple of years ago in Boston with throwing tea into the water, symbolically again, but cranked up. The exhibit at the Historical Society opened on Saturday, by the way. The Liberty Tree dedication was then. It's the 250th anniversary of the nation. So again, it's kind of a time when we could rebuild an interest in our region's history, since the peninsula was East Florida and St. John's is the first county in Florida. So, and the other, and this isn't an active case, but I do understand from a whole variety of sources that we may be revisiting Magic Beach demolition request by the brand new owner. So, who has retained the same consultant for that other project that is no longer on the agenda. Is that for being circuitous. That's fine. Anybody else have reports on anything exciting? No?
I guess the question that you just raised, Madam Chair, is if a demo permit is filed or comes to the county, does it automatically come to this board to, I don't know, do something, take some action or do some additional reviews, or what happens procedurally? Because again, we only meet once every other month, and what if a demolition permit is filed next week, and the party that I guess currently owns it that might want to demolish it doesn't want to wait for 2 months and claims it's a hardship. So I don't know. I mean, I'm just curious what the process is if you will get a permit for or application for demolition permit.
Yeah, through the chair, we get demolition applications all the time, and many of them are not 50 years and older, so those obviously are approved. But then when we do get demolitions that are 50 years or older, a process is done where we do a review and we determine through the Florida Master Site file if there's potentially significant structures there. Then a further step is taken. Now, if that's going to cause what the Land Development Code considers an adverse impact, then we actually take it a further step with working with that property owner to hiring a consultant, much like we've done with the jail here. It's still preliminary of the detention center. And so, and with Magic Beach that we're just going to talk about now, that they just submitted an application last month. And so, again, still preliminary. We have responded to that by saying, hey, this is 50 years and older. It is also a significant structure as determined by the CRB. There was a resolution done back in 21, I believe, for that structure. So it already has a significance categorization. And so from that point further, we will request them to, again, hire that consultant. They'll do a cultural resource management plan. That plan will actually set forth different alternatives to mitigate that adverse impact. And so and that will actually come before the CLRB for concurrent review.
Prior to issuing the demolition permit.
Yeah, all of that is prior to issuing any permit.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be demolished between our meetings then. Okay, correct.
Act of God.
So timing wise, we can either adjourn the special meeting if it is a time sensitive matter, or we can hold it to your regular scheduled meeting.
Okay.
Is there any possibility of reversing the way this is done in that mitigation automatically assumes it's going to be approved and you're already compensating for the loss? And in other words, try to save the building, not mitigate the damage, the demolition. The assumption when the demolition permit is filed, if you're asking for a mitigation report, is that you're already going to agree that it's okay to do that.
I think mitigation can include preservation, I think, so it kind of has all options on the table at that point. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Is there any information given to the entities, unless they're public, private developers, to let them know the ad valorem tax exemption, other incentives that they are, all of that, in other words? Because we're getting the same consultant is being hired to tear all this stuff down. It's the same person over and over again.
Yeah, we don't have any control over
Who talks to
hires
each
someone.
other, I know,
But certainly we do provide that, all the different categories of, to try to save something, if it's worth saving. Obviously, we're going to show them that the ad valorem tax exemptions and further.
is there any, in that holding period, or even before, well, yeah, I guess the holding period, we'll call it that, from the time they file for demolition, any way to keep them from stripping out the interiors and the significant components of the buildings so that then they become great candidates for demolition? you understand what I'm saying?
I believe I do. You have any thoughts?
I'm not sure I understand what she's saying.
Okay, if you file for a demolition permit and the public is looking at a building from the outside, from the public right of way, what is there to keep an owner, public or private, from going in and stripping out everything of architectural interest and value on the inside of the building, including structural walls, which then compromises it and becomes a health and safety issue to go ahead and take it down?
So I think, if I'm understanding correctly, if that building is not, if it's the same thing if, let's say they weren't coming in for demolition and it's not a landmark and it's not a designated significant cultural resource, that's a person's property, and so they have the ability, they would be able to remodel it, which might occur the same way. And so there's not necessarily a mechanism to stop that if it hasn't been designated.
Unless like a permit's required for.
Yeah, that's
Right, a permit's required, but a permit for a remodel on a building that's not a landmark or that is not designated a culturally significant resource.
It's significantly cultural.
A permit for a building that has not been designated a landmark or a cultural significant resource would have that ability to remodel it and to do what they would need to do.
Okay, in
So
the
I'm
case
trying
of
to-
Magic Beach, where it is,
Okay, exactly, so that's what I'm saying. So in that case, they have to follow their designation. There's just a distinction between the two.
but who's to keep them following it?
Right. What's
What's,
It's the process of going in
Yeah.
for a permit. I mean, if someone does something without a permit, we don't know whether it's designated or not.
So when they
But-
come in for that permit.
Right.
so otherwise all the rest of us need to just keep paying attention.
Okay, I have one more question about what we're talking about. This is a community redevelopment. It's a district established under CRA, the state redevelopment statutes, and the establishment of the CRA, I believe, has attached to that establishment a plan for the Rolano Town Center. And that plan is a physical plan, and it notes this and other buildings from what's called Deco, it's sort of modern period. It designates and notes these buildings that are important to the realization of that plan and that redevelopment. I believe this is probably the first of those buildings that were specifically noted that became the basis for the plan and the CRA establishment. I don't believe there's been anything else of this significance demo. I guess my question is this a violation of that plan and the structure that's been attached to the official adoption of a community redevelopment area for the Main Street, below Main Street? That's my question. It's probably a simpler way to say it.
That's not, so through the chair to Board Member Olson. So yeah, so Volana Beach Community is a community redevelopment CRA established through Chapter 163 of the Florida statutes. That plan is in fact just a plan, but it wouldn't impede upon private property rights. So there's nothing in it that would preclude somebody from taking action on a property that's privately owned. It does have restrictions with regard to any county-owned properties or any public-owned structures, but not for any private-owned properties.
I guess my point, and maybe it's not a legal point, is that the very basis for under which the CRA was established, the importance of the area was in part, in a large part, its architectural resources. So it's at least ironic that now further implementation of that plan involves demoing the very buildings that contributed to its establishment.
That's the focus.
So we can't do anything to protect the whole foundations of what the CRA was based on.
So the CRA, there was a couple things. It was a waterfront community, tourism, economic development. Those were some of the drivers of establishing the Volana Beach CRA and its plan. So there's, as long as the CRA and the agency, which is the Board of County Commissioners acting as the agency, are taking on projects consistent with that plan, then there's no violation. And so again, it speaks more to what the agency is doing and what the county is doing, not to an individual property owner.
The county is the biggest investor in that plan. 13, well, maybe not now with the hotel, but the county has invested at the front end, as based on this plan and this vision, $13 million in the street and storm drainage work.
Correct. And so that was bonded by the county. It's returned and paid for by the TIF dollars. As everybody knows, the TIF dollars is the difference between the taxes at the time the county redevelopment area is established and then the increase in values, and that money is used to pay down for that. So yeah, so it was actually the TIF dollars that paid for that.
Well, not yet.
Not yet. Working on it.
It's got a long ways to go before the county is made whole for that.
If the county's made it whole, I guess it's probably the better phrase.
To the chair,
Yeah, go ahead.
Hypothetically, let's just say hypothetically, if there was a resource that, I think what you're trying to get at is, could he use the CRA plan as part of evidence and justification for not approving a demolition? I think that's where he's going with that, is like using.
Yeah, that was
right?
one.
I think that's what you're thinking, and I was just, I don't know the answer to that.
So, I mean, the demolition, I'll let staff talk to how that process is going to work forward. But as you know, with a landmark or anything like that, you look at, the Secretary of the Interior standards. And so not necessarily the plan that would come into that. I do understand the sentiment behind that. I certainly do.
Yeah, good point. Thank you.
May I inject that this board authorized and approved an inventory of the A1A survey for the Volana Beach area and A1A. And in that result, they recommended that the Volana Beach Main Street be designated as a National Historic Area because of the assets of which Magic Beach and multiple properties are significant. So this board has a history in recognizing the significance of the value of Magic Beach.
Now, the only downside is National Register of Historic Places, just like it would for Hastings, provides absolutely no protection whatsoever. It is a planning tool. It is designed to give ammunition, foundation to a community to use those resources as a plan, to plan for them. And that's why I guess we're working crossways, it seems like, on a regular basis.
Right. If it's not a designated historic district, and then it's not considered a contributing structure therein until such designation happens.
Well, and yeah, even then, it can still be. Yeah, if it's a local landmark and it's got design review and all of that. But, all right, on the demolition process, just a question: what's the turnaround time? The slightly less hypothetical situation was that the demolition request that was public record was filed in November, but it wasn't, in theory, going to have anything happening before a review board until February.
Are you talking about the timeline on the former detention center?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that
Holocaust Remembrance Day, ironically, was
Yeah,
when
there
the
was-
demolition permit was filed.
it was filed in November of
Yes.
'24, and
Yep.
so in that time between now and between then and now, they had to hire a consultant. So then that's still in process. They're still in the review process of the cultural resource management plan for that facility. And so
But wouldn't it have been something to report to us at the December meeting? That there was a pending demolition permit?
yeah,
Magic Beach and this one were both talked about in December.
we brought it up as an update, but we didn't have anything to say yet because they haven't hired anybody yet. But now we're approaching that stage. But the bottom line is, until the Cultural Resource Review Board reviews the Cultural Resource Management Plan, I mean, demolition permit will not be authorized at all. And it'll be consistent with whatever is recommended.
Okay, I'm still a tiny bit confused, only because I'm looking at the minutes from the December meeting and see no reference whatsoever to that, so I guess I just missed all of that.
Are you gonna have public comment?
Can I make a recommendation for the chair? If we want to finish up your agenda items, there would be a good spot to have a public comment section. Or you can do it whenever you'd like, but
That's fine.
I just want to,
I just wasn't
like
sure
we're kind
whether
of
we're allowed to
starting
go
to
back in and, she doesn't have to fill out a speaker card or anything, right? Okay, yes, go ahead.
Sasha Martin, 133 Coastal Hollow Circle, and I'm a resident of that community. This is the second time that demolition has been requested for Magic Beach. It's getting a little tired, but one of my concerns is that the prospective owner who has a contract with the current owner to purchase the property and wants to develop it with the property next door, he has a history of going ahead with construction and afterwards getting a slap on the wrist and a fine. What happens if there was a bulldozer there yesterday, right next to the Magic Beach property and his property? What if he does a middle of the night thing that happened in Porpoise Point and starts to demolish? What is the penalty or something like that? Can you put him in jail? Can you call the sheriff's office and say he doesn't have permission to do this?
No,
What?
I'm answering on behalf of the county attorney, but
No, but I mean.
even in the city of
if
St.
you call
Augustine
that
where we have
historic
demolition by
preservation,
neglect, nothing happens.
So what preventative measures is the community afforded?
just as a quick conversation point,
What's your name?
in section,
I'm sorry, what's your name?
my name is Michael Agassiz.
You're with the county?
Yeah, thank you, sorry, I should have introduced myself. Michael Agassiz, Environmental Division, Growth Management. In section 3.107, there is a section about emergency conditions when the county administrator determines that there are emergency conditions that pose a threat to the safety or general welfare of the public affecting a cultural resource or landmark. The county administrator may order the correction of these conditions when the emergency conditions require demolition and destruction. County administrator shall make every effort to provide adequate time for a resource assessment, et cetera, et cetera. So that doesn't speak to the penalty. That's something that I really don't know off the top of my head, but there are provisions in the code for if somebody were to do that first. It's been considered as an option to.
But that sounds like it's an emergency and they go ahead and tell them to take it down for health and safety reasons and it doesn't go through any other reviews.
That is one, yes. I believe it could be interpreted, let me see.
The very first sentence under A is the county administrator may take emergency action to review and consider a threat to a cultural resource or
Right.
landmark.
That's right, yeah, I got the wrong, thank you. 3.106A. The county administrator may take emergency action to review and consider a threat to a cultural resource. A threat is contributing to any activity which may have an adverse effect. In the case of a development action which may pose a threat, the county department receiving such application, et cetera. It's pretty long. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but.
But when you say immediately, do we call the sheriff's office and say somebody's demolishing something they don't have the permission to do?
You can make that phone call.
Or the FBI?
Well, we're very grateful to this board for preventing it, really preventing it from being demolished with another potential buyer.
Right.
And the way you did it is you made it a significant cultural
Landmark.
resource.
Yes.
It was mentioned in the survey of historic properties, but it hadn't been. And the owners at the time did not want to go with a historic designation because they really needed to sell the property.
Yeah.
And they didn't want anything to interfere with a sale.
I can speak to that because I was very, I guess many of us were on this board when that happened. What happened was we did do the designation. It was, they were brought in a whole crowd to speak to what they wanted to do and didn't want us to do the designation. We did the designation. We heard their point. And we went ahead anyway with the designation. But what happened that blocked it was the Board of County Commissioners then had to act, I believe, on a series of what's the term? It escapes me right now. But variance requests, heights, building location, how the traffic was going to move in and out of the building, the site, something, a whole series of things. And the Board of County Commissioners voted not to approve it. And at that point, I think the project was, that's the way I recall, that was the project. The developers backed off because they wanted to build something really huge here, and the community came in a big way to speak.
Yeah, you had a broad spectrum of the community to oppose the demolition, support the landscape. Florida Trust members, you know, a whole bunch of us that.
I would say a lot of the same community interests will be made known if this.
Yes, but to Sasha's question.
Yeah, what do you do if he already clear cut the property? He built a sales building on the property without
Any permission, yeah.
And there are probably a lot of other infrastructure things that he did that he hadn't gotten from. And then we understand he paid a fine. Who decides the fine?
Well, I'm guessing it's a misdemeanor. I think is under state law is.
I would imagine it was administrative fine and not civil,
Okay.
so I don't think it was a misdemeanor charge. I would imagine it's a code violation.
Okay. I know demolition of historic
I mean,
properties
if
throughout the
it's
state.
$10,000, you're gonna say,
He'll
Here's
just
a
write a check, yeah. But we have that happen everywhere. So,
but this board is supposed to protect historic resources. So,
tie me to the trees that don't exist anymore. Yeah, well, I would just say as soon as something is found out, I think it would be really good to report it to all of us, even if it's in an email.
Absolutely.
Because the time lag from the middle of November till now is pretty significant. Okay, so just please in future.
the demolition request was on January 16th of this year.
For the one at Volano,
Yeah, okay.
the one that is no longer on the agenda but is the detention center was the middle of November.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why the irony was that's where the rabbis were imprisoned and it was filed on Holocaust Remembrance Day.
And your next meeting is
And this is
April,
Black
correct?
History Month.
Next meeting is April, so.
We can always have special meeting. We did that in November to address the comp plan. Our next regularly scheduled meeting, they're every 2 months.
Again, you've got these private property rights thrown into the middle of it.
Well, and
You know.
fee simple is as close
I
as you
mean, they
get,
could
but
just give
eminent
us a
domain
little
still
thing
takes
You know.
need when it needs
But
to.
the first time it went before the county commission as an appeal twice.
I know.
And the community came forward and said, Magic Beach is too precious to us. That wasn't Alana Beach Main Street, who has the regulations that they have to protect. They have to protect historic properties as being a main street, or they could be thrown out of Main Street if they didn't show support for historic property.
Talk to them.
Yeah, well, we're working on these discovery meetings so that the general public doesn't get misinformation and get all, they don't have factual basis. So we're working on trying to get information that's factual.
Down the road, it's, the county could be, I mean, there's ways the county could not be receptive to whatever he wants to do, even if he does go ahead and demolish it, because it could be a development that increases traffic volumes, contributes, I mean, the roads are way beyond capacity right now. In the town center. Parking is unavailable on many beach days and weeknights.
I think we're gonna have to go ahead and finish our staff reports and stuff, and you guys that live at Volano can have all the conversation about it.
Report's complete.
I think so.
Okay, through the chair, I'd like to present some key notes that we've been working on. So first, Vice Chair Sheldrup has requested that we update things accordingly as they've been presented to us or behind the scenes in development review. So since December 9th, our last meeting, we completed 9 demo permits, and these are, just as Ryan has mentioned, residential, not older than 50 years old. If you want to flip to the next slide, I believe I prepared that. It should be in it. It is a GIS map. Should be in the PowerPoint.
Isn't this map?
Yep, I did upload this into the PowerPoint. So we reviewed a series of 5 planned unit developments or similar projects that required us to overlook that cultural resource assessment survey. And these are just major projects that we reviewed, as you guys have requested to be updated appropriately. Moving on, county staff has discussed having materials with at least 1 month out or 3 weeks minimum in relation to new materials for you all to receive them accordingly. So for instance, this agenda did feel a bit rushed, whether it was from outside or internal sources, and we recognize that we are trying our best to prepare materials to disseminate to board members more quickly and in our own review, so that we all have time to appropriately respond, whether that's to the board or to the public. I took it upon myself to organize the storage space, which was super exciting. I labeled all those archives appropriately. Those are upstairs and dusted accordingly. Used gloves, all the measures. I did attend the annual meeting for the St. Augustine Historical Society and also spoke with Nicole Diem. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Just Dean.
Dean, thank you, Dean. And Robert Culver. That was a wonderful meeting to just understand some documents that they have and how they may be able to help us in the future. Logistical email will be going out after this meeting regarding financial disclosure. I'm sure those of you that have been on the board before are familiar with that. That is due July 1st. There is a how-to video. It is exclusively online this year. Next, there's an important opportunity to have an online training with the Certified Local Government Office in Tallahassee through the Division of Historical Resources. I believe I already sent that out, but I can absolutely remind you all. That is February 19th from 12:30 to 2:30 on Microsoft Teams. And important to note is that it's not open to the public. Those are for board members only or county staff.
It's an ad valorem tax exemption training. So.
Yep, thank you. Yep, it's ad valorem tax exemption training.
Is it classified under or Norfolk?
I submitted an ad valorem tax exemption staff report to the Board of County Commissioners. Really exciting project on 121 Kingsbury Way. I believe this item is a go-ahead on the consent agenda for February 18th. We are going to provide our annual report that we submitted to the CLG. I'll hand that out at the end of the meeting. That was due on December 31st, and that was for the fiscal year October 23 to September 2024. That was exciting to write. I learned a lot. The Wetumpka Fruit Company State Historic Marker was unveiled along Main Street on January 4th in Hastings, a very exciting project. Mike Lagasse also acquired some pretty exciting documents, and those are at the front of the room. I will not be handing them out just because they are sensitive material, so please use caution. It is the Quincentenary coin, and explaining the sister city of Aviles and the importance of that county seal. They're dated 1991 and 92.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Absolutely.
So that was handed over from the library. They're undergoing a renovation, and so they wanted a safe place to store it. So we brought it just for you guys to see, but it's in our storage. It's a document from Spain to the sister city kind of a thing. What we can do is we'll open it up at the end of the meeting, and you can pick up the CLG report and just view it as you pick it up. I wouldn't recommend necessarily picking it up.
And you're not gonna touch it to pick it up and open it, are you?
I'm gonna.
It's sitting under the fluorescent light, so.
You can also just know that it's there. If you don't like to see it, we'll just leave it shut there. Go ahead.
Yep. Through Dr. Keys, she did recommend that we post the 200th celebration storyboard. That is being sought after by staff through public affairs. And then lastly, we reached out to the Division of Historical Resources staff to obtain an updated GIS file to use for our development reviews moving forward.
Take comment. While it's very important for us to understand what staff is doing in terms of reviewing applications, what I had said in my motion previously was that I'd like to know what happens to our recommendations that the county commissioners have said, whether they approve, reject, approve with modification, or whatever the status. It doesn't need to be anything a long narrative, just a basic statement of status would be helpful.
Understood. Thank you.
It's okay. We're going to reserve the right to reach out and maybe get clarification on that again. Because I thought we kind of understood your request, but we may want to have a more in-depth conversation about what it is you're asking for. Thanks.
And I don't think between December and now we've had anything go before the board. I'll clarify one item, and that had to do with the ad valorem tax exemption. And so when something occurs in the city of St. Augustine, they have their own review board, and so those matters are reviewed by them, so it does not come here. They still are eligible for a county tax exemption as well as their city tax exemption, but since their review board has looked at it and made the determination, those just pass through and go to the county.
So the 131 Kings Ferry wasn't really a evaluation of it, just receipt of it.
Right, it was reevaluated by their
Hart.
Thank you, I couldn't remember that name. So they reviewed it and made the determination that it was consistent with the Secretary of the Interior standards. We received that report and the request, so we use that information to pass it forward.
Okay.
It keeps from dueling
Yeah.
boards.
So I can make one more clarification also. If you're done. The documents up here that we mentioned were on display in the front window of the library, and so I just want to be clear, this is not something from 500 years ago.
No, I know,
Okay.
but and I know
So-
they were. That's why I was so mortified. And,
Right.
and then when they disappeared, I thought, well, maybe somebody finally put them in, deacidified them, and put them in archivally stable storage. So, sorry, it's the archivist. Anybody else have any other business? If we need to have another meeting sooner rather than later, if there is anything that happens, any of our landmarks are culturally significant, please communicate with us in a time. It would be great to know the condition of the detention center, quite honestly.
So through the chair to the board, you certainly can make arrangements to go to visit that if you would like. I know you mentioned that earlier. You're not precluded. The only thing I caution about, as we talked about before, is that going as a group, more than two of you, because the matter would come before you for vote, that you'd have to abide by the sunshine laws.
Yep.
And so that's my only admonition with regard to that. Certainly, if you want to reach out and schedule time to go see it, that is something you may do.
As citizens, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, you know, like
Individually.
Individually, that's the only admonition I had regarding that.
Did you say more than two, so a group
No,
of two?
it's
No,
No,
More
two
than
or
one.
more.
two.
Good chit chat.
So you have to put your other personality away that day. Okay, there being no further business, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second. I didn't give.
Okay, let's say Robert Olson and Susan at 3:10 p.m. Off the record, I would appreciate if we could find out about moving the meetings, and definitely we should be televising these.